In 1998, Longjiang Province, Shangbei No. 1 Middle School, examination room on the 17th. Qi Lei stared out of the window blankly, passing through the lush poplar forest, and fixed on a door-faced room outside the school trendy video store. There is a faintly sweet song, with strong penetrating power, which is poured into the eardrum. Carefully identified, it is Jackie Chung's A Thousand Reasons for Sadness. What a trend! Stiffened his neck and retracted his gaze, a desk in front of him came into view. Okay, this desk is even more powerful. Pure solid wood has no splicing, and a brand is placed in the high-end furniture store. The desk alone is worth 1,000 or 800. Is just a bit old, and the paint is peeling off. I don't know how many god people left behind mathematical formulas, lyrics, and famous sayings. In the meantime, there was a crooked true confession. Farewell, Su Jian. 20 years ago, Qi Lei would feel so fresh. But now, like the majority of netizens, he will come up with the sentence lick the dog, you will end up with nothing. Looked away from the book class and scanned everything in the classroom. The 3-plywood blackboard with a broken corner is as old as the desk. The hygienic corner covered with white tablecloths, cracked and aged green paint on the wooden lattice windows. There are also the youthful faces hurriedly passing by, each returning to their place, so serious and flying. Of course, the neatly written characters on the blackboard are even more frightening. 1998 Shangbei City Junior High School Entrance Examination, Number 17 Examination Room Fake. Qi Lei looked at Farewell, Su Jian, then looked at the examination room on the 17th, it must be fake. Finally, he fixed his gaze on the next table, a young girl with short hair. Girl, girl, girl. It took a long time for the short-haired girl to react, and it was her who called next door. Turned his head and glared at Qi Lei. In addition to 7 points of anger, at least 3 points were disgusted, and he threw a sentence, I'm sick. In the north, people of the same age cannot be called girl, that's how the elders call the younger ones. Hey! Qi Lei is also unhappy with the boss, this kid, is very long and rare, why is his temper so big? Patiently, girl, don't get me wrong. Uncle wants to ask. Before she finished speaking, the girl exploded in place, I'm still your aunt. Stupid. Qi Lei was defeated, turned his head, stared at Su Jian on the desk and his pair of white and tender little hands, gradually reduced his expression and stopped temptation. Was inexplicably excited and excited. The current situation. Speaking of literature and art, it was a man who went back to time with exhaustion and unwillingness in his 30s and 40s. To put it bluntly, it means rebirth. From the greasy old man in 2021, back to the summer 23 years ago. Whether it is a gift from God or an accident under the overlap of time and space, Qi Lei is worthy of joy. The only regret is that there may be some deviations in the time node of the crossing. Why is it the entrance examination? In Qi Lei's previous life as a student, it was not beautiful at all. Especially in junior high school, he is not the kind of sensible child who is motivated and studious. The high school entrance examination can be described as tragic. With a total score of 600, he was in his early 100s. Still count 20 points of sports. Don't say missed the key high school, Pu Gao is not willing to ask him, so he can only go to a vocational high school to go around. Although the prodigal son turned around when he was in the vocational high school and began to focus on studying, it was too late. Slow step, the teaching quality, learning atmosphere of vocational high school, and the limitations of the college entrance examination profession, so that he has no chance to stand on the same starting line with children of the same age. Qi Lei went from a vocational high school to a junior college, and from a college to a bachelor's degree. Then from Puja Major to Puja Major postgraduate. I graduated from postgraduate again, and then it was difficult to find employment, difficult to live, and difficult to get married. Every step was extremely difficult. If someone else puts in 10 points of hard work, he will have to put out 20 points of hard work. But, who is the blame? The cause that I planted is the result of half a life's hardship. Chile had imagined more than once that if he could work harder, the senior high school entrance examination would be more effective, even if he could not get to the key high school, and only went to the general high school, the next 20 years would be completely different. At least in the college entrance examination, you can have better scores and more choices. But, what the did you put me in the middle school entrance examination room? 20 years ago, we didn't know what Newton said. 20 years later, even his old man was almost forgotten. How can we take this test? Is it true that Jianghua will continue to go to vocational high school to learn to shop and serve dishes? After a brief complaint, Chile began to calm down. The soul of the middle-aged man gave him a calmness far surpassed that of a 16 or 17-year-old boy. Thinking about it, it doesn't seem to be that bad either, at least much better than it was more than 20 years ago. First of all, God bless, he still remembers the composition title of the senior high school entrance examination. Chile's grandfather found out that he had colon cancer before the high school entrance examination. He had just completed the operation. Fortunately, the operation was successful. The whole family experienced a life-and-death life, from great grief to great joy. Chile feels deeply about this, so the composition for the senior high school entrance examination is my grandpa. Because of personal experience and Chile's own talent for writing, that composition became the only highlight in Chile's high school entrance examination. Out of 50 points, he scored 40 points, still fresh in my memory. Secondly, in his previous life, he used Chinese, English, mathematics, science, and comprehensiveness, plus a subject of politics, and the 5 subjects were not enough for 100 points, and then 40 points were not enough for the composition, and he scored more than 50 points. 5 courses, only 50 points. This is no longer an explanation for poor grades, this is the score that can only be obtained by the test of the gods possessing the body. Even if it is covered again, it will be better than before, right? In the end, in order to find a job, he had a little more confidence in the society, and he studied English hard in college and graduate school, and passed the TOEFL. Even if there is a slight discrepancy with junior high school English, it should not be too different. So to sum it up, another test with more than 100 points should be more difficult than entering a key high school. His requirements are not too high, and he is above the general high line. If you think of a way, there may be a glimmer of hope for the bargaining scores of key high schools. Of course, it's very slim, so I don't need to have too much fantasies. However, as a person who came here, he knew that for a young man in a small town, especially in the north, without a new forefather, academics are almost the only way out. High school entrance examination is the first watershed in life. Vocational high school, general high school, key high school, the gap between the three is like a heaven, even if there is the slightest possibility, it is worth fighting for. Thinking of this, Chile got up and looked at the test time on the side of the blackboard. There are 2 days in total. This morning, the first session was mathematics synthesis, the second session was politics, and the afternoon session was Chinese. There will be only one science synthesis session tomorrow morning and English in the afternoon. 5 exams in 2 days, taking into account the adjustment of candidate's status, so the time is not loose. It is extremely urgent for Chile. Moreover, at this moment, the invigilator had already entered the arena with a large stack of test papers, and the first test after Chile was reborn officially began, without any buffer at all. Mathematical synthesis, namely algebra, geometry comprehensive paper, time 2 hours. After getting the paper, Chile first copied the test number with his name, school, and the test admission ticket posted on the corner of the table. I started answering the question right away. Okay, I said it was answering the question. In fact, I was looking for a question with him. After all, it has been more than 20 years, and the rebirth of Swiba has almost forgotten, let alone the scumbag, basically all strangers. However, Chile still carefully examines every fill-in, judgment, and multiple-choice question. Because there are individual questions, it can still be answered. For example, it can be inferred from high school and university knowledge. Although the knowledge of high school and university is very vague to Chile, but at least I have studied it carefully, and I have some impressions, and now it can come in handy. In addition to these, there are some that simply send sub-questions. Even if he is scumbag, he always knows the Pythagorean theorem, right? Can the quadratic equation of one variable be solved? There are also equal operations, replacement, and elimination, all of which can be solved. Try to send points to get hands, to ensure that no points are lost due to mistakes. It's just that there are not many such questions after all. Chile quickly checked most of the test papers except for the big questions, and there were only a dozen questions, and the rest really won't work. But it's okay. At this time, the exam has only started for 10 minutes. All the candidates are thinking hard, but Chile slowly craned his neck. Glanced at the next door with a pair of 8.0 eyes, the female classmate who looked like wow, but was quite temperamental. There is no way, one more point is 1 point, even if it is copied. Not to mention, even though it was a two-person desk with one person sitting in the middle of the aisle, Chile still caught a lot of glimpses until he was spotted by the female classmate. Because of the previous unpleasantness, Chile had a bad impression. The short-haired girl immediately gave Chile a vicious look and blocked the test paper with her snow-white forearm. True white. Chile secretly praised. As expected, regardless of whether a 16-year-old or a 36-year-old man, he likes a 16-year-old girl. Sorry to smile at the short-haired girl, and then stopped offending. The advantage of a middle-aged soul is to have a sense of measure, and the warning that the invigilator in front had already come to his lips also swallowed it back. In fact, she has long discovered that Chile is not being honest. However, if it is not absolutely necessary, there will be no warnings, nor will it exercise the right of invigilating to expel candidates. After all, these children don't understand, UU reading www.uuganshu.com, but she knows what the senior high school entrance examination means to students. That means that educational resources are no longer fair, and that a good school is a good starting point. Chile didn't have to copy here, and scanned the test paper again, except for the big question. He also filled in half, but I don't know what is right or wrong. But I also understand that it's over. Fill in the remaining blanks, choices, and true or false questions, and then, hand in the paper. Yes, I just give up on the big question, and I don't even try. It's meaningless. When he stood up, the short-haired girl cast a surprised look. He handed in the paper. The invigilator frowned slightly. I'm too lazy to copy? Just give up. Can't help but shook his head slightly. As an old teacher, there is nothing wrong with the poor students. I am afraid that the students will give up on their own. Like this kind of self-willing to submit papers in 20 minutes, it is not as good as those who dare to copy. After all, they still know the importance of a bit more. However, Chile's following actions surprised the invigilator even more. I saw him put the test paper in front of him, and then showed a very sunny smile, stood still, bowed, without any pretentiousness and perfunctory, "Teacher, I'm sorry, for causing you trouble." After finishing speaking, he strode out of the examination room. Looked at Chile's back in a daze. The invigilator didn't react for a while. "I'm sorry, for trouble? He won't know, I found out he cheated, right? Can make such a move." Smiled from the bottom of my heart, and gradually became warm. This kid is not bad, he is so calm at the age of 15 or 6, and he has vision. Judging from her experience of teaching for more than 20 years, it is really good. Okay, this invigilator turns his face faster than a book. After leaving the examination room, Chile went straight out of the school. Although he was in the middle school of the second middle school, the first middle school is not far from Chile's home, so he is familiar with the surroundings. In my impression, there are many bookstores outside of number 1 middle school. Randomly found a house, and asked, "Boss, do you have a textbook of physics and chemistry for junior high school?" "Yes." The bookstore owner nodded. There are often students who have not finished the semester. Either the textbooks are half missing, or they don't know where they are lost, especially for boys, so bookstores also sell textbooks. It's just that it's not genuine, but it's more expensive than genuine. They are all secretly printed by small workshops. The quality is average, but a lot of money is earned. Pointed Chile the position, and the boss waited at the counter to collect the money. It's good to be a student's business. You don't need a service attitude, let alone marketing. If you ask, 90% of them will buy it. But, the boss waited for a long time. Not only did the business fail to complete, but no one came out. Still wondering, what's the situation with this child? Went out of the counter and went to find Chile, only to see him sitting on the ground, holding Junior First Physics Book 1 in one hand, and copying formulas with the other hand using his knee as a desk. Hey! The boss is very upset, and there is no bookstore that you can read for unlimited time these years. Snatched it over, buy it or not. Who can I sell it to? The tone was not good, very vicious. If you change to another child, you will definitely have a guilty conscience and run away dingy, but Chile doesn't change his face. Excuse me, uncle. I'm a third-year candidate, and I didn't remember some knowledge points. Don't you want to take the exam? I'm anxious, so I just... The boss stagnated, and then teased, "Examinee? Examinee, you can't just read my new textbook here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Chile had a very good attitude. The boss looked down subconsciously, and saw that there was indeed no crease, and his heart relaxed a little. Before speaking, Chile gagged again. "Would you like this? I didn't bring enough money, can you let me use it first? Really in a hurry. I brought the money in the afternoon and bought this book." At this point, no matter how hard-hearted the boss is, he can't harden it anymore. Besides, these years, people are very simple. Looked at Chile, and at first glance, he was not a child of a wealthy family. He still looked anxious, but the boss was a little bit embarrassed. "What am I doing for a child?" Xin said, "Forget it, it's not easy to blame. If you miss the exam, it will be a lifelong matter." Handed the textbook back to Chile. "Look, see. Just be careful. Didn't buy the stubble with the money." Chile took the book, still with a comfortable smile, and said, "I'm sorry, I caused you trouble." The boss waved his hand generously, turned and left. Immediately, Chile was left alone in front of the bookshelf, with a smile on his mouth, and he glanced at the wall clock on the wall. He came out in more than 20 minutes after the exam, and now there is an hour and a half before the end of the comprehensive exam, plus a 20-minute break between exams, that is to say, he has nearly 2 hours to use here. Chile's strategy is like this: give up the comprehensive, the next political and the afternoon language can also be handed in early, so that the time saved will be spent on the comprehensive tomorrow. Although no matter how squeezed it is, it's still not enough, but it should be possible to memorize the physical and chemical formulas, which will be more or less useful. As for why not spend time on politics and language? Because it's not a bargain. Politics and Chinese want to achieve high scores purely by rote memorization. I have the energy to memorize the next text. How many formulas is enough to memorize? Moreover, it is not necessary to memorize the text, but the formula must be useful. The second advantage of middle-aged souls is that they know how to plan their time. 2 hours. Chile pondered that he should be able to copy the physics formula for 3 years in junior high school. After studying politics, I went home and copied chemistry. And the boss didn't expect it. I didn't remember a few formulas you just sat for 2 hours. Moreover, during the period, he even took a look, that kid actually changed to a second-grade physics book. I regretted the boss, it's better to ask for his money. But I endured it in the end. It wasn't until the next subject was about to start the exam, and only 5 minutes were left before Chile closed the second-grade chemistry textbook and prepared to leave. At this moment, he not only finished copying all the physics formulas and theorems of junior high school, but also made the first book of chemistry a head start. The bookstore owner also breathed a long sigh of relief, this wave of losses. However, since I have promised to others, there is nothing to say, just a few words of righteous reminder before leaving. Don't take away the drafts you copied. You are not allowed to take them in the examination room. Come on, I wish you a good high school entrance exam. Chile smiled, and thanked him as he walked. It's okay, the political exam will be done next, and the physics formula is not against the rules. Hey! The boss was taken aback, isn't lit song? Chile looked innocent, liaison tomorrow morning, it's still early. The boss didn't flash his waist, take the exam tomorrow? Take the exam tomorrow, what are you doing today? This hapless kid. When I returned to the examination room, the preparation bell was not ringing, and the invigilator was not there. The examinee was either waiting in his seat for the examination, or he had not yet returned. When passing by the short-haired grumpy girl, facing the unkind eyes, Chile raised his hand naturally, "Hello, auntie." Puff. The girl broke her work in an instant, staring at Chile with anger and laughter. "No, who is your aunt?" Chile spread his hands, "That's a girl, you don't want to." The girl was completely speechless. "This classmate, you said to yourself, can girl be called by a normal person? My dad called it that way." Chile wanted to laugh, but there was no way to talk this day, and chatting again would take advantage of her. "Well, what should I call it?" Talked, used to stretch out his right hand like an adult. "My name is Chile, how do I call the second middle school?" The girl is dumbfounded. This set of greetings and self-introduction is very smooth. But we don't want to shake hands at this age, right? Fluttering with big eyes, staring at Chile in a daze, and learning his tone, "My name is Sujian, I am from one of the middle schools, and I am glad to meet you." "But, don't you need to be so old-fashioned?" Actually, Chile realized something was wrong after reaching out. "But I can't take it back." In order to relieve the embarrassment, Chile immediately looked disappointed as soon as Sujian's words fell. "Look, I don't want to give it a chance. Haven't touched a beautiful girl's hand yet. Fuck you." Sujian smiled and cursed to cover up her shyness, and naturally gave Chile a label of quite funny and somewhat special. At this time, the invigilator stepped on the preparation bell to enter the examination room, and the first glance was to look at Chile's position. And Chile also retracted his arm logically, ready to start the exam. "Just secretly smile in my heart, little girl film. Can't handle you yet? Copy 2 more questions for you this time, so it won't be blocked and stared again, right? Only, Sujian. Is the name so familiar?" Subconsciously looked at the old desk. "Farewell, Sujian." Chile opened his mouth immediately and looked at the next door blankly. What a coincidence. I just don't know who the original owner of this desk is to lick the dog. The soul of gossip began to burn, but it was just in time for the invigilator to send papers to him, pretending to be serious, and said, "This classmate, don't look, she has no answer on her face." Boom! There was a burst of laughter in the examination room. Even if Chile had a thick skin, he was a bit embarrassed. Knows that the invigilator is hitting him, so that he can look more honestly during the exam. There is only one political scroll, with a total score of 40 minutes and a time of 1 hour. Don't look at the low scores. I really want to get high scores based on the standard answers, but I have to memorize 6 full political textbooks. Not to mention, in 1998, the high school entrance examination in Harbin area implemented one choice of politics and history. Both courses must be memorized. Before the exam, a lottery will determine which one will be tested. In other words, for these 40 minutes, you have to memorize politics and history. It is simply an extinction of humanity. For Chile, fortunately, it is politics rather than history. As far as the accurate time of the characters and events in the history scroll is concerned, as well as the historical significance, it can drive people crazy, and a wrong word will be fine. But politics is different. Although there are standard answers, there is one particularly good thing about politics, that is, it can be deceived. As long as the review of the question grasps the central idea and writes the core content, the other things are the 4 basic principles, the core competitiveness of socialism, Marxist-Leninist thoughts, and so on. Com can make a big score even if it doesn't get a full score. Moreover, after getting the test paper, Chile found that he seemed not as pessimistic as he had expected. Many questions need to be memorized by rote for junior high school students, but for a person in his 30s who has passed the postgraduate entrance examination, they are just like common sense in life. Is like a fill-in-the-blank question, is our country's national system? If you didn't study this seriously, you must fill in socialism, is our country's national system. But Chile knew at a glance that, the people's democratic dictatorship, is our country's national system. For another example, multi-party cooperation and political consultation, the 3 mountains are, imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucratic capitalism. The ruling philosophy of our party is, serving the people wholeheartedly, establishing a party for the public, governing for the people, and so on. This is a knowledge point that needs to be memorized for a junior high school student, but for him, it is something that is familiar to him. Finally, Chile's political paper answered quite a bit with his own knowledge. There were some questions that couldn't be covered, and even when the invigilator didn't pay attention, he peeked at the next door for several times. Although Su Jian found out about this, but in the end he just didn't see it and concentrated on making her own papers. After half an hour, and half an hour before rewinding, Chile handed in the paper as usual. Still attracted the attention of Su Jian and the invigilator, both of them could not help but sigh. It is a good boy, but he is not thinking about studying. The invigilator habitually flipped through Chile's papers and found that it was much better than the previous subject. At least, it's full. After finishing the 2 subjects in the morning, Chile went home directly. Number 1 Middle School is located in the east of Shanghai City, next door is the Korean Middle School, and Shanghai people call it Chao High School. Chile's house, just outside the south wall of Chao High School, is the family room of the grain depot. The long rows of bungalows resemble the old style of a family. Chile was born there, where he spent his childhood and adolescence. Later generations, as Chile went to university, went to study and work in other places, coupled with the laid-offs of his father and his mother, and retired, the family also moved out of the old house, and has not been back for 10 years. Chile searched for his memory, returned to the familiar alley again, and stood in front of the old iron gate, but he was full of emotion in his heart. I used to dislike this old and crowded home very much in my previous life. I just wanted to escape, dreaming of having a more spacious and bright new home in the city of high-rise buildings. However, after a few years, the family tried their best and was bruised. When they finally had the new house of their dreams, they discovered that the small yard covered with vines and only 2 rooms was the most peaceful harbor. Just, can't go back again. Unlocked the door, Chile pushed the door and entered. The lush vines really came into view, reflecting the dappled light and shadow in the sun. There is also a red brick floor and a self-built kitchenette. Chile stepped on it, leaping for joy in his heart. The protagonist in the novels of later generations, every time he is reborn, the first thing he thinks about is how to make a fortune, and he has a lot of money. It's Chi Lei's turn. Of course, he also wants to live a better life, have more wealth, and act. But he felt that that was not all. A person going backwards back to the past, seeing those people and things, relive the beauty, regain the old dreams, shouldn't it be more worth looking forward to? Youth. Flower season and rainy season. That is how much wealth and status cannot be exchanged. He doesn't want to live again in the second life, but at the age of 30 or 40 years old, to reminisce about youth and lick regret. Enjoying everything around him, opening the door and entering the house, everything seems to be no longer so strange. Used to get into the small bedroom of his own, and the whole person was shot horizontally on the single bed. Entering the eye is the desk, the stack of slam dunk and Yu Yu Hakusho on the table. That picture of Johuimin and Ekin Cheng on the wall. That row of acoustic guitars. That dazzling noon sundae. Cool. Chi Lei bounced off the bed with a roar, humming, straddling the table, turning out 90% of the new second-year chemistry, and starting his great career of remedying evil. The test opens at 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's just 11 o'clock, and there are 2.5 hours available. As for the father and the mother, when you go to work, even if your son is a major time in the high school entrance examination, he will not come back at noon. At this point in time, Chi Lei was already extremely disappointed, and they didn't expect him to get any good results at all. Although there are only 4 books in chemistry, there are quite a few things to copy. Formulas, theorems, reaction equations, element tables, atomic weights, Chi Lei never missed it. A good memory is not as good as a bad pen, copy them all to deepen the impression. It took an hour to copy the 2 textbooks, which was much slower than physics, and I used one manuscript after another. However, Chi Lei didn't feel tired at all. Compared with the adults' 9 tonnin rushing and toiling, the hard work of the student days is almost the same as playing. Was swimming in the ocean of knowledge, only heard the bang of the courtyard door, was kicked open suddenly, 2 teenagers about the same age as Chi Lei walked in. Son! Dad came to see you. Chi Lei froze for a while, but didn't dare to look up, but imagined the 2 people in his heart. One, with gold wire frame glasses, skinny like a telephone pole. Another one, with the shining Elite 3 generations around his waist, like a turtle. When the 2 teenagers came to Chi Lei's window and looked in through the half-open window, Chi Lei spoke. Let things down, then, get off. The 2 of them were taken aback for a moment and were shocked. It's not that Chi Lei's words are not polite, but, fuck. This guy is actually working hard? Tang Yi glanced at Wu Ning beside him in horror, and Wu Ning also glanced at him in horror. Tang Yi, are you reading a book? Wu Ning, okay. It seems like chemistry. Tang Yi, because of what? Wu Ning, which chick was stimulated by you? Tang Yi, is that a bit late? Wu Ning, are you late? Tang Yi, late. Chi Lei broke out, say it again, put things down, and people will get out immediately. Dealy. Tang Yi and Wu Ning replied obediently, handed a bag of buns respectfully through the window, then bowed their heads and walked out. Tang Yi did not forget to remind, eat while it's hot, don't get tired. Wu Ning said, Brother Lei, wait for me after the exam. I will run to you when I leave the exam room, but people say you left early. Before closing the door, Wu Ning asked again, also, who else has the short hair in your exam room? It's a good one, I'm in the middle of the picture. Return. Chi Lei slapped the table and jumped up, but tears were already streaming down his face in the shadow of the window that the 2 of them couldn't see. Wu Ning turned back flatteringly, what's wrong? Brother Lei has already inquired about? What is the girl's name? Which school is it from? Chi Lei forbeared his emotions and said, the topic of the afternoon composition is what is mine. Believe it or not, let's go. Wu Ning. Hey! Brother, and you are talking about girls, what essay questions are you talking about? Besides, you are also embarrassed to be the second to last level. Shook his arms and walked away sadly. Don't help me, I will do it myself. Looking at the back of the two, Chi Lei fell into tears again. Tang Yi and Wu Ning, his two best brothers, have been playing since childhood. Let them go, not that the three of them will part ways and become enemies someday in the future, but Chi Lei is not ready to reunite with them. 10 years later, the three brothers are all considered academically successful, and they meet in the society to make a break. However, an accident took the lives of two brothers at the same time. 10 years later, Chi Lei buried them personally, crying like a child at their funeral. And now, Chi Lei doesn't know what to say to them. Is to warn Tang Yi, don't let our dad engage in firecracker business? Still cursed Wu Ning, what are you going to run abroad? I haven't seen you for several years. Or tell them, it's a shame that you don't mix well without you guys. Sat down and continued to copy the book. With tears in the meantime, he grabbed the bun and swallowed desperately. This life not only wants them to live, but also to live better than the previous life. In this life, you must not be ashamed. Okay, thinking about everything is for nothing. The first issue is the high school entrance examination. 1:10, Chi Lei came out of the house on time and went straight to number 1 middle school. 1:20, carrying 2 big feet, entered the examination room on time. Su Jian next door has arrived. There are spread Chinese textbooks on the desk. Her arms hang under the desk, and she reads with her pointed chin against the desk. Seeing Chi Lei coming in, a pair of big eyes followed Chi Lei's trajectory all the way, very playful. And Chi Lei sat down and patted a big foot on Su Jian's table. Brother never owes favors to people, especially beautiful women. Su Jian raised her eyebrows, but she had no reason to refuse. Drew out his arm neatly and began to unpack the skin. Then you are so cheap to repay your favor, and a popsicle will send your aunt. Chi Lei can't even say a little girl film? Grinned, you read www.yuyuganshu.com. Okay, one is not enough, I don't have any opinion on eating it for the rest of my life. Fuck. Su Jian rolled her eyes again, forget about it. Chi Lei just giggled, and said nothing. This kind of ambiguous joke, the point ends, if you talk too much, you are playing a hooligan. And Su Jian is a little heart beating violently, no boy has ever made such a joke with her. I want to die you. You know, the little girls in 1998 are still very naive. After a while, before the invigilator arrived, Chi Lei approached Su Jian, who was biting the popsicle stick again, and whispered, help, I'm really not good at it. Hee hee. Su Jian sneered, what's wrong with you? That's too bad. Subconsciously grabbed Chi Lei's shoulder, with an old face, brother, give up. After finished speaking, he retracted his hand like an electric shock. She was surprised how could there be such a behavior, she had never done this before. Besides, I was still an enemy in the morning. After 2 tests, I was called a brother and a brother? This boy is poisonous. Su Jian told herself like this. Waved his hands in disgust, go, stay away from your aunt. Chi Lei didn't move, that's okay, help. Fine, go back, be good. Chi Lei smiled knowingly, got it done. There are 515 events. It happens that old book friends want the title of fan. After thinking about it, don't care if it's a new book issue. First complete a small task and get some title. If you like the tune of the new book, please vote and support. At 1:30 in the afternoon, the language test officially started. Chi Lei, according to the comprehensive test method, first finds the meeting and submits the sub-questions, then stretches his neck to call the airdrop, and it is enough to stop before the invigilator loses patience. It was hard to fill in the blanks, choices, and judgments. I temporarily skipped the reading comprehension and recitation of the text later, and turned directly to the last page of composition questions. As expected. With my as the title, write a composition of more than 600 words. Chile looked at the essay question. He was secretly relieved, but he couldn't help but feel anxious. In his previous life, he got a very high composition score because of his grandfather's illness. In this life, can he still write that feeling of true feelings? Maybe, after all, the wording level of junior high school is incomparable with his writing level of daily copywriting in later generations. But to surpass later generations, is it possible to get a higher score? Can only say that it is unlikely. Because of looking at the composition topic, Chile actually gave birth to a different perception from the previous life. This topic is not simple, there are pitfalls. At first glance, the first reflection of many people is, my father, my teacher, my classmates, my kitten, my childhood, and so on. These have not been written in the past learning, but at first glance they are the most common narratives. However, Chile found an intriguing detail. The essay title did not specify the style. With my as the title, write an essay of more than 600 words. What is mine? But there is no rule that it must be a narrative. You can write argumentative essays, you can also write prose, and you can even write poems without going off the topic. This is interesting, it's a big pit. You must know that the grading of the composition will definitely be mixed with the subjective emotions of the teacher. Regardless of whether it is the high school entrance examination or the college entrance examination, it is impossible to get a full score in the composition, but it is also impossible to get a 0 score. How many points give is all in the mind of the critic. This essay question, you don't need to think about it, most of the candidates will write according to the narrative, and it must be my grandfather, my mother, and other topics. Invisibly chose one of the most common subjects among the narrative, argumentative, prose, and poetry styles. No matter how good the writing is, in the eyes of the reviewing teacher, it is the same. Later Chile's piece by my grandfather is excellent and impeccable, but it only scored 40 points. When you think of getting a higher score, either you are only 8-pointed and shocking, or you have some innovations in the subject matter, which makes people shine. Thinking of this, Chile gave birth to a bold idea. Give it a go? Don't write about grandpa, but change to a subject that has a chance to get a higher score? To be honest, there are risks, and the risks are great. In case of a bad game, there will be a lot less points. Doesn't fit the mature and steady temperament of my middle-aged soul. But I am not willing to be a salted fish. Are you still a young man if you are not angry? After pondering for a long time, he wrote the draft again, and finally, Chile wrote the written test paper, My Homeland. The title requirement is 600 characters, and there is no cap. But Chile knows that the length of middle school composition is about 800 words is the best. Will not be too short to make the narrative unclear, nor will it be too long to disgust teachers who have to read hundreds of essays every day. So, this essay in the form of prose, no more, no less, just a little bit more than 800 words. The beginning of a very popular internet celebrity text in the future, combined with the 98YEAR flood fighting and rescue environment. Chile thinks that he should be able to stand out and be liked by the scoring teacher, right? It took about 30 minutes to finish the composition. I took a look at the time. The 2.5 hours of the exam time only passed by a little over an hour. Chile did not choose to hand in the paper right away this time, but returned to the reading comprehension and recitation questions. I filled my reading comprehension according to the level of my own knowledge, never let go of the recitation questions, even if I made up my mind, I didn't leave any space at all. Still the same sentence, Chinese is the most subjective subject, especially in this era when there is no computer to mark papers and only a pair of eyes from the teacher. You can't tell which word or sentence can make you so much more. After was filled, Chile reviewed all the test papers again and made sure that even one punctuation mark was not missed, so he was relieved. Punctuation marks are also points. After doing all this, there is more than half an hour left, and I habitually care about the next door. I saw that Su Jian had already answered all the questions including the composition and was checking. Chi Lei glanced at the title of her composition, My Secret. Can't help but shine, it's very novel. No longer hesitate, got up and handed in the paper. Regardless of the invigilator or Su Jian, I have long been used to it. Su Jian even wondered, did this guy fall asleep and drag him out for 2 hours? Gave Chi Lei a vicious look, a posture of hating iron but not steel. And the invigilator has no hope for this very special poor student. Took the test paper and took a look, couldn't help shaking his head and smiling bitterly, and chanted again in his heart, what a pity this kid. The invigilator teacher is Li Yanhong. He is a high school teacher in the second middle school, and he teaches Chinese. You can know what Chi Lei is at a glance. In addition to the composition, I read the previous part again. It is estimated that for this 100 points, Chi Lei can also get 50 points. This level is simply horrible. Feel free to turn to the composition, My Motherland. The title is still invisible, even a bit cliched. Almost predictably, impression Chi Lei lost half of it. Is actually normal. As soon as she curls up, she knows that many good students in this year's composition will fall into the pit. This is an obvious trap. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. My home country is not new, so many candidates will lean on it. For this year's essay questions, I don't know how many good students are going to sink into the sand, not to mention the poor students like Chi Lei. Scanned down and found that there was a subtitle, If the miracle has a color, it must be Chinese red. What? Li Yanhong whispered, making the candidates below all look sideways, wondering where the invigilator is. But Li Yanhong has a look of surprise on her face. This subtitle is a bit interesting. If a miracle has a color, it must be Chinese red. From a professional point of view, this is a mimic sentence. Does miracle have a color? Of course not. Miracle is an adjective, not a specific thing. How can there be color? However, the examinee said that miracles have colors and gave the answer China red. From the point of view of sentence structure, that is, the color of miracle is Chinese red. However, this sentence has to be explained in reverse. The color of China is a miracle. China is a miracle. The sentence lifted the breath, even a bit amazing. Li Yanhong gave a secret compliment. It was just a subtitle, and the topic was already selected. The slightly cliched title My Motherland was no longer ordinary, and it was sublimated all at once. Good. Li Yanhongzhen said that it is worth at least 10 points on this topic. Looking down again, it is startled again. Prose. She found the second surprise again, and the whole person became more energetic. She originally thought it was a narrative. Moved around, leaned against the podium, and watched the following with a trace of expectation. Then, Li Yanhong was completely stunned. My homeland, if the miracle has a color, it must be Chinese red. 5,000 years ago, we fought the flood like the ancient Egyptians. 4,000 years ago, we played bronzes like the Babylonians. 3,000 years ago, we thought about philosophy like the Greeks. 2,000 years ago, we fought as bravely as the Romans. 8,000 years ago, we were as rich as the Arabs, and now, we are playing a long and short time with the Americans. For 5,000 years, we have been at the poker tables in the world, watching the rise and demise of one opponent after another. If the miracle had a color, what color would it be? I said, it must be China red. Hiss. Li Yanhong took a breath, shocked inexplicably. Despite the expectations, Li Yanhong found that she underestimated the composition. Sure. This beginning is so shocking. Looked down impatiently, this. Li Yanhong was shocked again. This is an argument. Began to look at the style, she thought it was prose, but along the way, the examinee actually wrote an argumentative essay in prose sentences. The three elements of an argumentative essay, argument, argument, and argument, are all rubbed into prose. First of all, the color of miracle china red. This is the argument. Then, one by one, the arguments composed of beautiful prose styles came into view. Chinese civilization is one of the 5 civilizations that independently cultivated food crops. Chinese civilization is one of the 4 civilizations that independently domesticated livestock. Chinese civilization is one of the 17 civilizations that have independently emerged languages. Chinese civilization is also one of the earliest civilizations to use ironware. Foreigners said that China is rising. And we said, no, we are revival. Because, on the stage of the world, we have been the leader for thousands of years, and now we have only been short of seats for 100 years. Looking further down, in order to demonstrate that the unyielding spirit of the Chinese nation has existed in ancient times, the article wrote, China never lacks miracles, and Chinese people are never afraid of danger. Because, whenever disaster strikes, Hunan people would say, if China is going to die, unless the Hunan people die. Shaanxi people would say, 2 wolves fight and whoever shakes the sky, how can a good man die for the country? Sichuans will say, if you don't retreat from foreign enemies, you will not return to Sichuan. Henan people will say, the country is still like this, why should I pity this? Jiangnan people would say, send a message to pedestrians to stop and cover their noses, and the living is not as sweet as the dead. Hebei people also said, there are many generous and tragic people in Yanzhou. The people of Guangdong and Guangxi even said, drinking ice for 10 years, it's hard to cool blood. The man in the northeast would say, how about swearing to death? One fight to fulfill his duty. This is our China, the world is full of people who don't want to be slaves. This is our Chinese. On the spine that bears the weight, we carry the indomitable national loyal soul. Although we were once trampled by foreign iron hoofs, we were once smashed by imperialist artillery, we were once driven by the enslavement of the invaders, we were once abandoned by the world. However, we have never given up on China, and have never forgotten the religious teachings of our ancestors. Just like today, the 100-year flood is about to overthrow thousands of miles, but the line of defense built by the Chinese sons and daughters of flesh and blood is raging and fearful. Just to create another miracle, one person can conquer the truth of heaven. This. It is the sons and daughters of China, the unyielding backbone. This. It is the color of miracle, the color of China. Come on, my color. Come on, my country. Good. Li Yanhong's shooting case is amazing. An old teacher who has been teaching Chinese for more than 20 years was so emotional and sweating. Okay. All the examinees stared at the invigilator in a daze. Okay? What's so good? Why don't you let people stay? How about the exam? Su Jian frowned with snow-white brows, and she was suspicious. Can that guy get along with good? Isn't it just for him? What did he write? And Li Yanhong also knew that she was gagged, cleared her throat awkwardly, and then had to become solemn again. Judging from her years of experience, there may be something wrong with this composition. Stylistic prose colloquial essays, sufficiently novel. The structure is impeccable and perfect. The wording is also as much as possible, and it is amazing enough. Especially the sentence, China is not a rise, but a revival. From top to bottom, everyone is talking about the era of the rise of China, but he actually did the opposite. Is not a rise, but a revival. In just one sentence, how much strength and confidence does it convey? It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a strong paperback. And the most important thing is that starting from the first sentence, it is almost a point of knowledge, and every sentence has allusions. For example, if China is to die, unless the people of Hunan die. From Yang Du's Hunan youth song Don't Retreat from Foreign Enemies, vowed not to return to Sichuan. It was the Sichuan army leaving Sichuan. The country is still like this, why should I cherish this? From Justice Poetry by There are many generous and tragic people in Yanzhou. From Han Yu. Drinking ice for 10 years, it's hard to cool blood. Liang Kikao, The Complete Works of Drinking Ice Room. At the level of Li Yanhong, I only know these allusions. The rest, even she can't tell the source. This is a perfect composition. Thinking of this, Li Yanhong became nervous again, and read the whole composition carefully twice again. Has no typos, and even the punctuation marks are correct. Li Yanhong's heart loosened. Great! Can't help but exclaim again, how many years has Shang Bei not written a full-point essay? How many years hasn't the Harbin area written a full-point essay? It's incredible. Opened the test paper in front of Chi Lei again and threw it out disgustingly. What is it? By blind, this is a good composition. Is a little bit dumbfounded. Such a poor student, but with such a good writing, is simply a waste. There is no way, this is a system that values scores, and more importantly, averages. If there is any shortcoming, no matter how strong the others are, it is useless. You can't get to a good middle school, let alone a good university. Not to mention Chi Lei, except for this composition, everything else is a mess. Although Li Yanhong likes this student very much, judging from his grades, no matter how strong his writing ability is, he is destined to miss out on good educational resources. The college entrance examination 3 years later is destined to be mediocre. Pity. While Chi Lei used an essay to surprise the invigilator, the examination room number 14 is not far from the examination room number 17, and there are still 20 minutes before handing in the papers, but Wu Ning has the desire to die. At this time, Comrade Wu Xiaojian was holding his gold-rimmed glasses, looking desperately at the composition topic and a piece of untouched composition paper. Is it really my? How did Qi Shita get caught up? Wu Ning thinks he is very unlucky, very unlucky. Among the 3 brothers, his academic performance is the best. Even if he fails to enter the Qi High School, he can still stay within the bargaining line. He played well in the morning, thinking that maybe he might have the opportunity to move directly to the Qi line. As a result, I came to him in the afternoon. Just now, when he saw the composition question, he was silly. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com really made Chi Lei right. And myself, why didn't you believe my brother once? If you make a draft in advance, even if it is a belly draft, it will not be stable? It's okay now. Originally, there was plenty of time to write the essay, but he was frightened and froze for a long time. When he came back to his senses, there was only a little time left, and he still had no ideas at all. Wu Ning wanted to cry. What should I do? Qi Shitu, you are a bastard, but you have hurt Lao Zi. Scolded Chi Lei 10,000 times in his heart. What's the use of scolding, the test is still to be tested. The great goal of directly crossing the Qi line and saving a few $1,000s for my father is still to be achieved. Anxiously, I think carefully, finally decide. I can only take advantage of it. Gritted his teeth and wrote on the paper, my dad. My father is the director of the Education Bureau, and he is very busy every day. Eloquently portrays a conscientious director's father like an old farmer, who will finish the work before handing in the papers. Not bad. Master scoring give me dad face? Wu Xiaojian thought so. One more chapter at 8 p.m. From the beginning of the book, I saw a lot of old faces, and replied long time no see over and over again. I was full of emotions, and my mood was hard to calm down. Thanks to the leader of Nank Beauty, the leader of 1 and 3 Poisons, and the leader of 12 Insects. I also thank 125, the Moon, and Xiao 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 for their rewards. There are also those old friends who vote for monthly tickets, give rewards, and leave messages for greetings. Kang Shan loves you, the next life, why? Speak for yourself. Chi Lei didn't wait for Wu Ning again. As for Tang Yi, the examination room is on the 3rd middle school side, which doesn't match them. For Chile, every minute is precious now, and the matters between brothers should be discussed after the exam. Went straight home, closed the door and continued to recite the science formula. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for Wu Ning and Tang Yi to kick open the iron gate again. Qi Shishi. Your yellow leather, 1, upper body, right. Wu Xiaojian began to interrogate. Tang Yi also looked terrified. Too special, so accurate. Come, brother Shishi, read to me. Tonight, my dad will show favor and reward me with a bunch of old people. Hurry up and read to brother, I will burn incense for you. After the buffer at noon, Chile is no longer so excited, let alone crying and wiping away tears, and his mind is all learning. Speechlessly, I'm just foolish, who knows how accurate. Below. What should I do? Wu Ning is reluctant. Monument? Fuck. Wu Ning cursed, why don't you be firm anymore? If you be firm a little bit, don't you believe it? As a result, Chile did not respond, but Tang Yi stared at Wu Ning in a daze, meaning you didn't believe me. Wu Ning stopped for a moment, I didn't believe it. Did you believe it? I saw Tang Yi's wicked smile, it's not a letter. It's just that I couldn't hold back on the road, thinking about it, what a silly draft. Whispered again, but don't say it, it's really useful, it saves a lot of things. Wu Ning almost cried again, pinning her last hope on Chile, is the stone not believing it? I don't believe it, just like a lunatic, I typed a draft. Oh my day! Wu Ning was desperate. Was completely desperate, why didn't he take advantage of the three brothers, but planted instead? Rushed into the house fiercely, no, brother has to make it up. Grabbed a chemistry book, lay down on the bed, must make it up. Tang Yi saw that both of them were reading, so he had to keep up. Entered the room, squeezed into the same bed with Wu Ning, dragged Chile's English book and started to read it. Chile ignored them, as long as he didn't make trouble or delay his review. Actually, the three brothers are all kind of people who have brains but don't like to learn. A little seriousness can make a lot of progress. Is like Tang Yi and Wu Ning. They just listen to them during class. When they go home, like Chile, they never touch homework, but they can also mix the level of the middle class. Especially Wu Xiaojian, this guy is sometimes forced by his mother to learn a little bit, and his grades have always been the best among the three brothers. Chile was really crazy, not studying at home or at school, just like this now. It was so quiet in the room, only occasionally there was the sound of pages turning. Against the setting sun, the light and shadow of the vines entered the room, unspeakable tranquility. After a while, snoring came from the bed. Chile looked back, the two sleeping thieves yang. Couldn't help but laugh, and it was really hot for 3 minutes. Withdrawing his gaze, Chile pulled out a physics workbook from the pile of books and read it. Did not write, just can't write. He found that the progress was faster than he expected, and the formulas and theorems were almost memorized. In fact, this is not surprising, nor is it any superpower that Chile gained once he was born again. Even if he didn't learn many things in junior high school, he still needs to use it in high school. So now, Chile can't be regarded as starting from the head, at best it is a review. For example, Newton's first law, Chile will definitely not be able to answer the first question. But when I opened the book, all objects always remain stationary or in a state of uniform linear motion when they are not affected by external forces. Is inertia, it's unforgettable just to watch it once. Picking up the workbook, Chile's purpose is not to do the questions, but to be familiar with the question types. The same reason, now that the benefit of writing questions is not big, it is more useful to understand the question type. Around 6 o'clock, there was the sound of motorcycles in the alley. With the sound of the iron gate, Chile looked up and saw that it was his parents who came back. Both Chi father and Chi mother work in the grain depot. The difference is that his father Chi Qiajun is a temporary worker, while his mother Guo Luo is the office director. When King Qi was young, he was transferred to the Shangbei Musical Instrument Factory when he was transferred to the military art troupe. It was a product of large-scale production in the 1960s and 1970s. The small one is Shangbei. All the towns and villages in the city have less than 1 million people. Not to mention the musical instrument factory. There are not many harmonica players. They are completely supported by the system. The first wave of layoffs in the 1980s was washed away, and Qi Qiujun became a laid-off worker. Fortunately, Guo Luo's grain depot is considered a good unit, and his qualifications have also reached the position of director of the office. It's a kind of selfishness, turning Qi Qiujun into a temporary establishment and working as a warehouse keeper. The two entered the hospital and first looked at the Qi Lei room. Seeing my son reading there, although he was stunned for a while, he didn't get much reaction. Qiujun Qi went directly into the kitchen to prepare dinner, while Guo Luo went back to her house to change clothes. Qi Lei wanted to welcome out, but as soon as he remembered, his relationship with his parents was not very good during this period. The rebellious period, coupled with his grades, made the trouble very stiff, and started to noisy within 3 sentences. Secondly, if he behaves obediently and sensibly, according to his mother's anxious temper, when will he be arrogant? The first task now is to review, and everything will be done after the exam tomorrow. Guo Luo changed the clothes at home, and went to Qi Lei's room routinely. At this time, Wu Ning and Tang Yi both woke up, holding books in a decent way. I saw that Guo Luo was sweeter than Qi Lei. "Godmother, when do you have dinner?" "Hungry." Guo Luo smiled. "Wait, let's stew ribs for you." "Tisk tusk tusk." Tang Yi suddenly slapped his mouth. "Godmother is better than real mother. My mother's craftsmanship, my father dislikes it." Qi Lei had a chill when he heard it. This sentence shouldn't be so-and-so's craftsmanship, doesn't dogs hate it? Tang Xiaoi over there is still behaving. "Godmother, can I call my mother over? She is very pitiful at home alone." Guo Luo smiled more deeply. "Your dad is socializing again." Tang Yi, he eats at home on a monthly basis. Was talking, already ran out and told his mother to go. Guo Luo dragged Wu Ning again. "Call your parents, too, I haven't eaten together someday." "Dealy." Wu Ning grinned. "Just wait for godmother's words." The 3 brothers are not only brothers in their generation, but the previous generations are acquaintances. Qi Lei's grandfather and Wu Ning and Tang Yi's grandfather came from the war years together. It was a fateful friendship. So as soon as the 3 brothers were born, they recognized this partner. Dismissed Wu Ning and Tang Yi, Guo Luo did not leave the house, stood behind Qi Lei and looked at it for a while, and said to his heart, "Are you really reading a book?" And Qi Lei was stared at by his mother and his face was hot. He had no choice but to turn his head and squeeze a smiling face. "Mom." I saw Guo Luo frowning. "It's okay." After that, I went to the kitchen. Before leaving, there was a sigh. As if to say, "What do you look like now?" In the past, I didn't learn it. The more I learned, the more I will do it right with you. Qi Lei is ashamed of knowing what his mother is thinking. In his previous life, he was most grateful for the woman who allowed him to grow up overnight. The most regrettable thing was that the 2 brothers passed away early. The most sorry thing was the parents, who made them worry a lot when they were young. Sullen his head and continue to look at the question. Qi Lei is holding back a force, but this force just can't break out now. He was so suffocated that he couldn't breathe and could only endure it. Qi Qiujun's cooking skills are very good, and he tinkered with a table of dishes in a short while. At this time, Tang Yi's mother Kui Yuman and Wu Ning's parents Wu Lianshan and Dong Xiahua also arrived. The situation of Wu's family is similar to that of Qi. Wu Lianshan is an accountant. He is a well-known accountant in Shangbei. Dad Wu is responsible for all the units in the city. And Dong Xiahua is already at the deputy director level in the finance bureau, in charge of a large number of tasks, and his powers are not small. Both are strong women and weak men. Kui Yumin alone is a full-time housewife, but Tang Yi's father, Tang Chenggang, is incomparable to most people. In the words of later generations, he is the richest man in Shangbei. The largest private enterprise in the city belongs to Tang Yi and his family. Of course, afterwards, Tang Chenggang ran off the track and set up a firecracker factory to make it bigger and earn more. It's just that there was an accident and it exploded, and both Tang Yi and Wu Ning got in. The three families live in a hutong. The picture is a convenient way to go, and the life is the same as a family. Of course, no matter how you kiss, you are not a family member. There are always things to be avoided, such as the problem of children going to school. Come over to eat, which is also an important pass for the senior high school entrance examination. But sitting on the table, I didn't mention anything about the exam or what to do next. The two families knew that Chile made it difficult for Chi Qiujun and Guo Liwa, and no one wanted to block the two males and females at this time. Besides, the child hasn't finished the exam, and now it's not good for the child. Therefore, everyone should have nothing to do with it, and still talk and laugh about the neighborhood gossip and the trivial matters of the work unit. But the more this is the case, the more uncomfortable Chile is. The blame is only for his unsatisfactory past life. Parents are actually very talkative, very straightforward temperaments, but since they entered junior high school, they talk less and less and see less and less smiling faces. To put it bluntly, the adults gather together, and the child is the first to compare. Rather than just the three houses, Chile is also the most unsatisfied among the neighbors. Is all caused by myself. Secretly swear, never in this life. After eating hastily, Chile went into the house to read again, until after 11 o'clock. Guo Liwa came to see it twice and couldn't help but persuade, "It's getting late, go to bed." I dare not insist on persuading, I have to coax. Chile closed the book and gave his mother a complicated look. "Okay, listen to me." Guo Liwa just showed a smile. After holding back for a long time, watching Chile go to bed, before turning off the lights, he finally said, "Don't have any burdens, it's okay if you fail the exam." Early the next morning, Chile woke up at 5:30, went to the yard to wash his face, and sat down at the desk again. Guo Liwa heard the movement, put on his coat and looked over. "When I saw my son reading so early, the whole person was not good." Went back to the room and awoke Chi Qiujun with an elbow. "That room is working hard again. What's the matter?" Qiujun Chi stared at his eyes for a long time and couldn't figure out the situation. He finally became sober, and threw a sentence, "When the child is older, do you know the severity of the bad thing? Why are you nervous?" After finishing speaking, I turned over and wanted to get back to sleep. Guo Liwa glared at him, obviously dissatisfied with Chi Qiujun's perfunctory. After gritting his teeth for a long time, he came up with a sentence, "If he can generalize the high line, let Cheng Gang find someone to send him to the second middle school." Second middle school and experimental high school are Shangbei's only two key high schools. Chi Qiujun turned his back to her. "Cheng Gang? He can still let you pay for the price?" "No. The three members of the Qi family have the worst experience. Tang Chenggang is not short of money, and Wu Lianshan does a lot of extra money for others. Only Qi family is a dual employee. But the two males and females don't want to trouble others, the life is their own, and they have to live by themselves." Qiujun Chi thought for a while and said, "Or, forget it. What counts is the test. If we entrust people ourselves, we will spend a lot of favor without saying that, and the bargaining price is more than 10,000 yuan. The money is spent here. Can't you take care of the food factory?" Guo Liwa gritted his teeth and did not speak, and after pondering for a long time, he sighed, forget it, where can I go for the test?" She also understands what Chi Qiujun means. No one knows what her son is like. He performed well today, but maybe he will be in trouble with you tomorrow. Even if you go to a key high school, if you still don't study hard, you will miss both ends. Tightening his coat tightly, Guo Luo frowned and muttered, the non-staple food factory is really good for dim sum. If you miss this village, there will be no shop. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com but. He glanced at Chi Qiujun, the factory takes it over, can you figure it out? Chi Qiujun was silent for a moment, but he took a sigh of relief in his heart. After a while, try to come, you have to fight it. Guo Luo acquiesced in what he said, yes. After all, you have to fight. Although they had no hope of learning Qilei, they never stopped worrying. Thinking that Qilei is unlikely to have a good academic performance, what can he do in the future? So, the couple, who had spent half their lives in the system and ate half their dead wages, started thinking about doing business. Don't you want to save Qilei more capital in the future? No, it happens that a non-staple food factory under the grain depot is going to be restructured. The two thought about it, taking out the savings that they had saved for half a lifetime, and contracting the non-staple food factory. At least it's a business, it should be able to make some money. Qilei didn't know what his parents thought, so he had a moment of thought. After eating breakfast at 7 o'clock, Qilei went straight to the examination room. In the past 2 days, all my thoughts have been spent on the theory, which is also a subject that Qilei has given high hopes to raise the score. The exam is about to start soon. P.S. Huang Paizi, the first of the 4 great beasts in the north, he is incense in the world, he can respond to any requests, and he can enter the land of immortals. There will be crowdfunding of monthly tickets from 8 to 12, which is equivalent to 4 times the monthly ticket reward. Kang Shan asks for a wave. Capable friends help out. In addition, you can also invest now. If you don't have a collection, please help me with a little collection. During the new book period, everyone will support me a lot. I came here a bit early today. When I entered the examination room, there were still 20 minutes before the test started. Most of the candidates hadn't arrived yet, and Su Jian hadn't come either. It's just that Qilei felt a bit wrong as soon as he came in. The candidates who had been busy before hadn't moved their eyes since he entered the door, and they all looked at him directly. The Qilei who looked at it was a bit inexplicable, and thought he hadn't washed his face. As soon as she sat down, Su Jian walked in with a pencil case dangling. As a seductive and beautiful girl, also attracted a lot of attention. But people are much calmer than Qilei, Su Shi has long been used to it. Came to the seat calmly, glanced at Qilei, pretending not to know him. Qilei didn't even bother to say hello to her, his mind was all on the physical formula. I have memorized it all yesterday, so I can consolidate it before the exam to be foolproof. The examination room was quiet for another 5 minutes. Suddenly Su Jian, who was pretending to read a book, finally couldn't stretch herself. She supported her chin and moved slowly to Qilei's side. How is your Chinese test? Qilei frowned slightly, why did he remember to ask this? It's not very good, it lasts 30 minutes. Qilei is not humble, he can answer by his own ability, only more than 20 points. Although I copied a little bit, but who knows the level of this sturdy little girl, if it's about the same as myself, then the copy is just for nothing. The rest of the reading comprehension and recitation are blind, God knows how much. It's only 30 points. Of course, not a composition. As a result, Su Jian was shocked when she heard that, 30 points? 150 points, can you get 30 points? Is this a bad study? Simply did not study. You are great. Hey? Hey. Qilei is not happy anymore, Su Jian moves a lot, and the whole examination room is watching him. It's not kind to be so mean to a scumbag. Isn't it a shock? As a result, Su Jian rolled her eyes, you have a thick-skinned face, don't be afraid. It's a big deal to compensate you. Then, he withdrew back with a puzzled face. Xin said, "Is it so bad? What was the ghost name of the invigilator yesterday?" After a while, the invigilator entered the venue on time. As usual, he glanced at Chile, his eyes were very complicated. The examinees also consciously handed in the exam-related textbooks and exercises to the podium, while Chile punctured and tore up several large sheets of manuscript paper that were full of copies, and threw them into the trash can. "Bye-bye." Su Jian saw in her eyes, full of disgust, "Throw it away when you use it up, there is no feeling at all." At the beginning of the main examination, the physics and chemistry papers are composed of a full score of 120, each accounting for 50%. Chile got the paper, wrote his name and test number as usual, and then started to do the questions. I only looked at the first fill-in-the-blank question, and he was secretly relieved, he would do it. Perhaps the 2-day review worked, and then the second question, the third question, and the 7th question was a little stuck. Skip directly without delay. About 30 minutes, Chile actually finished all the small questions. Among the uncertainties, there are only those 7 or 8, which surprised Chile himself. Looking at the time, Chile decided to go back and solve the 7 or 8 small questions. There is still plenty of time, so he will try to get it done. Actually, those 7 or 8 small questions are stumped by the question type. Last night and this morning, he has been picking out representative question types and trying to solve each question type 1 or 2. But the time is too short to take care of all the question types after all. Chile thought he should be able to handle the obstacles caused by the eyesight. After all, he hasn't forgotten all his knowledge of high school and university, and his ability to solve problems in science and logic is still there. If you give him a little time, he may not be able to do it. In this way, Chile spent 20 minutes and finally slashed all the obstacles. This made Chile feel refreshed, and felt the joy of learning for the first time in his life. After sorting out his mood, he officially launched a charge for the calculation problem. This is the time to test him. However, Chile is still not in a hurry to write, first quickly scans all the big calculation problems, picks out the easy ones first, and solves them first. These are all points that can be achieved in real combat, and you can't lose a point. It was easy to do. Chile looked at the following table again, there are still 40 minutes, there are still 8 real problems behind. Chile was not nervous about time, but took a deep breath and relaxed a lot. Below, every time you do the right one is profitable. Immediately start the calculation of the first question. It is a word problem of a chemical reaction, which is very difficult. Chile thought hard for a long time before finding a way to solve the problem. When he made the final stroke, 10 minutes had passed. One question only takes 10 minutes, and there are more difficult things later. Chile dare not pause and continue to tackle the problem. The second question is a physics question. It takes a little shorter time than the first question and takes 7 minutes to complete. For the third question, Chile seemed to have found the feeling, and it was done in 5 minutes. At this time, there are less than 20 minutes, and 5 big questions are left empty. Chile kept working hard, but did not find that the broken hair on his forehead had been soaked in sweat. At this time, Su Jian next door was turning her head to look at Chile. She had already finished her answer, and she had rechecked it twice, so she could hand in the paper at any time. But, the king of papers next door is still there. Looking at the fine sweat beads on Chile's forehead, Su Jian squinted her big eyes, very curious. Why is this guy so weird? Learning is poor, but not annoying at all. Obviously I should be inferior, but I am confident everywhere. In short, a very comfortable boy. Su Jian, it would not be boring to have such a person as a friend. It's a pity that they are destined to be people on 2 trajectories, intersecting briefly, but drifting away. Su Jian matures much earlier than other children because of family reasons. She knew early on that the friendship of adolescence was not innocent at all. There is only one criterion for judging the friendship of adolescents, and that is achievement. In school, good grades do not become friends with poor grades. After the exam, even if two people whose scores are not at the same level are in a tacit understanding, they must be assigned to different schools and different camps. Then, I will only go farther and farther, and become more and more unfamiliar. Is like her third year, everyone writes in the memorial book forever. However, the reality is extremely cruel. For more than half of the classmates, graduation is a farewell, and there will be no intersection from now on. This is the case for 3 years of classmates, let alone only 2 days in the examination room. Thinking of this, Su Jian was a little bit lost, not reconciled, but unable to do anything. The bell rang suddenly, and the physical examination was officially over. Li Yanhong did not rush the candidates to hand in the papers, but slowly cleaned up the stage. Eyes floated to Chi Lei from time to time, seeing that the sweaty boy finally straightened up in relief, and then shouted, "Come and come, put down the pen. No more papers will be cancelled. What about you? Chi Lei, right? You have the problem all the time, can you save some snacks?" Chi Lei repeatedly apologized for the invigilator's scolding, but the smile at the corner of his mouth couldn't hide it. At the moment when the bell rang, he finally let the last big issue bow his head. While standing up and turning over the paper, he looked to the next door, only to find that Su Jian, who was very carefree, seemed a little unhappy, with a gloomy face, unlike before. Asked in a low voice, "What's wrong? Didn't play well?" Su Jian glared at him, and said to her heart, "Will this girl not perform well?" Asked back, "How about you? Estimate the point." Chi Lei was bitter, "I don't know." He really doesn't know, he will finish answering the question before he can check it. Whether it is right or wrong, how many points he can score, he really has no idea. Do not know. Su Jian shook her head, only when the teasing before the exam touched Chi Lei's self-esteem, this time she was embarrassed to report her score. "Forget it, don't talk about it. Why did you go with this shame? Just study hard." After finishing speaking, he took a few steps in a hurry, and ran out of the examination room, getting Chi Lei a little strange. Did I mess with her? Taking the English test in the afternoon is Chi Lei's strongest point. But I still didn't dare to be careless, returned home, found out the English textbook and started to flip back from the beginning. Junior high school English is not difficult. The test mainly tests students' vocabulary and basic grammar. Vocabulary, Chi Lei is definitely fine. Access is based on grammar. Middle school English is British English, and the TOEFL test for later generations is the English ability of non-English speaking candidates in the United States. There are differences between the two. Chi Lei couldn't help but complain about this. Why didn't he take the IELTS test at that time? Isn't that troublesome? The purpose of reading books is to find out the differences between the standard grammar and sentence patterns in the textbook and their own cognition, and to minimize errors in this area. However, when this speed is not like physical chemistry, Chi Lei turned it quickly, almost 10 lines at a glance. After a while, he finished reading the first volume of English in the first year of the junior high school. Tang Yi and Wu Ning also reported on time and brought Chi Lei lunch as usual. The two brothers saw him holding a book while reading and eating. They were also witty and left without staying much. Until the exam, Chi Lei roughly turned over 6 volumes of junior high school English. Su Jian stepped on the spot to enter the examination room with the invigilator, and resumed as usual, with a carefree look, and actively greeted Chi Lei. The test begins, first listening, and Chi Lei said it was giving points. The next questions were answered quickly, and with listening comprehension, it was all done in less than an hour. Or maybe it can be faster. Reading www.yunsha.com is mainly because of the time wasted in English writing. He has to be careful, and replace all the content with vocabulary that he has learned in junior high school, otherwise he will get a bunch of uncommon words. Not only will he lose points, but he will also get points deducted. I didn't rush to hand in the paper, it was already the last subject, so there was no point in rushing for time. Chile marked out all the big questions and small questions that test grammar on the draft paper, and then checked them in detail one by one. Combined with the memory of just reading the book, make sure that there is no grammatical misuse. There is still half an hour before the end of the exam. Chile checked repeatedly and made sure that he could no longer find any faults. He got up, handed in the papers, and it didn't make sense to consume it anymore. Before leaving the examination room, he bowed again to Li Yanhong and said, "I'm causing you trouble." Li Yanhong watched him walk out of the examination room. Her eyes were very complicated, and the expression of regret was beyond words. She has brought students for so many years, and this examinee left a deep impression on her. And Su Jian? Su Jian stared at her eyes, almost breathing fire. He's gone? He just left. Like Suze Himo's farewell to Cambridge, I wave my sleeves and will not take away a cloud? You, don't even say hello? The clenched knuckles of his small fist were white, and he gritted his teeth and stared at the classroom door for a long while. Does he know what it means to finish the exam? Parted ways, never see you again, understand? I have called this girl for 2 days, don't you even say goodbye? No. Who let you go? Su Jian suddenly picked up the pen, wrote a phone number in the corner of the draft paper, and then casually tore it off and held it in her hand. Got up, handed in the papers, and chased after him hurriedly. In the last subject, the candidate's heart is already wild. Especially in English, if you don't, you really don't. Therefore, Chile is not the only one who handed in papers in advance. When he came out, there were already a lot of cheering figures in the corridor, and Wu Ning was among them. However, it was not because of his bad English, on the contrary, Wu Ning relied on English to improve his grades. Dong Xiahua is determined to send her son abroad, so she gave Wu Ning an English cram school at the beginning of the first year, which far surpassed Tang Yi and Chile. When the two brothers met, they didn't talk about their grades at all, so Wu Ning opened his mouth and said, "The madman will be able to go back in a while, what shall we do?" Chile didn't even think about it. "Go, please eat popsicles." Wu Ning instantly smiled, "Brother Stone is righteous." The two brothers walked out of the teaching building, and from time to time they came up to say hello. Of course, not at Chile, but Wu Ning's relationship. This product has always belonged to the kind of people who are very good at coming things. Don't care about the ones who study well and those who don't learn well, and those who dance honestly, even if they are not all friends, they can still be familiar with each other. How about called Wu Xiaojian, can eat well? Chile deliberately went to the bookstore where he was reading before. For those who do business around the school, there is a freezer at the door for cold drinks business. When I came last time, Chile saw that there was a freezer in front of the door. The boss obviously still remembers Chile, and at first sight, he felt a little bit in his heart, thinking that the hapless kid had come to take advantage of him again. Unexpectedly, Chile paid $10 and said, "We will count together in a while." Can make the boss happy. If the two young men open up and eat, 10 yuan is not necessarily enough, more than he can earn by selling textbooks. In this year and month, the monthly income of workers in small towns is around 500 yuan, and a caddy of ribs is only 4 and 5 yuan. 10 yuan is no longer a small business. Wu Ning is the one who chooses the expensive one. Chile grabbed an ice bag and bit off a corner, sucking in the unpalatable flavor soda. It's not so much the taste that I drink, it's the nostalgia that I taste it. Any child who came over in the 90s, who was not in the hot summer, sucking in an ice bag to enjoy the coolness? However, as soon as the two brothers leaned against the freezer and started fighting, they saw a brand new mountain bike hurriedly stopped in front of them. Tang Yi shook it handsomely for 3 to 7 minutes, "Fuck. Eat alone." Chi Lei and Wu Ning were both surprised. Why did you come here? The exam room is in number 3 middle school, which is quite far away. Tang Yi stared. Brother released it an hour in advance. Rolled over and got out of the car, threw it to the corner, and then opened the freezer to search. Boss, do you have a Coke? The action was done in one go, very chic. The three of them were stuck at the door of the bookstore, eating and drinking while guarding the freezer, while chatting about the girls blowing cowhide, like 3 second hands, little hooligans. But this is youth, full of publicity. Of course, if there are 2 or 3 more girls, even if it is not a relationship between men and women, they are as close and ambiguous as brothers, and they are enough to be stored in the memory for the aftertaste of the wine after a few years. After chatting for a while, Tang Yi proposed to go home. Chi Lei hesitated, and finally agreed. So, a mountain bike, 3 big and small boys. Wu Ning shrank on the beam and had to press his waist tightly against the handlebars. Chi Lei rides in the back seat, which is the most comfortable. However, Tang Yi suffered a lot, and he used the strength of milking, and was caught between the two of them, and had to endure Wu Ning's ridicule. Do you know how to ride a bike? Can you be safe? An angry Tang Yi cursed. Close the anus. Why don't you come? Fuck. Stone, can you be honest? Don't shake it so much. Chi Lei smiled, listened, and suddenly sang loudly, in my heart, I once had a dream. I want to sing to make you forget all the pain. Wu Ning, let us sing, change your real smile. Chorus, bless your life to be different from others, grasp every minute of life. Go all out for the dream in our hearts. How to see a rainbow without experiencing wind and rain, no one can succeed casually. Wu Xiaojian, are you a pig? Can't remember the words. My pleasure. The 3 teenagers gradually go away. However, in the shadow of the school gate, what Su Jian saw was a set of peculiar pictures. At the chapped intersection in front of the gate of number 1 middle school, a dirty and messy Lois road stretches into the distance and looks like a rundown bungalow. That is the direction Chi Lei goes home. As for the big boy who made her impulsive, he just dangled in the back seat, with an ice bag in his mouth, humming a vague song. Right in front of Su Jian, opposite the dirt road, there is also a vertical road extending into the distance. That is the direction to enter the city. The brand new asphalt pavement, the tall buildings rising from the road and the bustling city center in the distance are looming. That is the direction Su Jian goes home. At this moment, she was standing in Linying in front of the school gate, looking at Chi Lei who was embarrassed in the dust and the tarmac road leading to prosperity. She seemed to have the tragic evening scene of Qian Yao's novel in her mind, and she seemed to have touched reality. Barb. She wanted to stop Chi Lei and waved at him the phone number that connected each other, but she didn't dare to break the beauty of reality and let it go. Can't help but smile, the 2 people who surprised me with a glance are not like the 2 directions of the chapped intersection, drifting away, and predicting different endings? Finally, Su Jian gradually let go, and stopped looking at that figure again. Crossed the dirt road, stepped on the asphalt road, and strode towards the city. She and him are destined to be people of 2 worlds. She has an unattainable family background in the eyes of ordinary people, a lovely face, proud grades, and a mature mind that is far superior to her peers. Therefore, her life is like a clock, carefully adjusted. She will go to the best school, get the best grades, and then go to the best university abroad, aiming at the most promising major, and embark on a life path that ordinary people can't reach. Although plain, it is secure enough to make most people jealous. As for him, I don't think about being motivated, and I wasted my time. That is not personality, but naivety. How interesting. Will eventually be vain. If she is also a traverser, then she will definitely quote the classic quotation of a later talk show actor, so ordinary, yet so confident. Su Jian feels that she has grown up a little bit again and has realized a new truth. Life is to keep letting go. And this time, it's just to say goodbye to a 16-year-old kid, what's the regret? Gently tore up the damp phone number and threw it into the trash. Goodbye. I will forget you. Su Jian said to herself, doing her final farewell. It's just that, life is like a play, incomprehensible, she is still a pretending little child after all, how can she know whether the next intersection will go in the opposite direction, or meet by chance? Is it overlooking the ordinary or being overlooked by the ordinary? The mountain bike finally no longer crooked, Tang Xiaoi has found the knack for driving the road ahead in the bumps, and rushed towards home unscrupulously. Chi Lei had completely lost the mentality of a middle-aged soul at this time, and he also realized a truth: what a special outfit! At the age of 16, you have to be 16-year-old presumptuous. How many adults still sit in the car and listen to old songs and brave foolishly, just to relive that era full of memories? I don't need to remember, I'm just 16 years old, not being stupid or showing up is a waste of good time. So, he and Wu Xiaojian cursed Tang Yi together, slow down. Can you slow down? My is numb, and the ice pack is also lost. It's so embarrassing and embarrassing. It was even more unbearable than when he was secretly surveyed, but Chi Lei was not embarrassed at all. Until turning into the alley, the speed of Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com suddenly dropped, and the two of them jumped out of the car as if they were fleeing, and thumped Tang Yi. Tang Yi hurriedly avoided the siege, rammed the only two-story building in the alley with his front wheels, and threw the car into the courtyard. Mom, the exam is over. Before Kui Yuman chased him out, he rushed out of the house again like a gust of wind. Three brothers joined forces and went straight to Chi Lei's house. Between entering the room, Tang Yi directly took off the coolest guitar on the wall, held it in his arms, assumed a rock and roll posture, and strummed. Chi Lei picked up a handful as he learned to do what Tang Yi's tune was. He stared at the string for a long time before playing the first note. Wu Ning's side is using the desk as a drum, intoxicated by it. An opponent that cannot be modified. Bringing warmth is always behind. Suddenly the ghosts cried and howled, the magic sound filled my ears, and the room cover was trembling. When the neighbors on the left and right heard the movement, they sweated. It's over, the third year of the middle school is over, and the little gangsters are starting to do it again. Just next door to the key house, the old lady of the Yang family was knocking sunflower seeds with a middle-aged woman, talking about the parents. Hearing the hustle and bustle next door, Mrs. Yang frowned tightly. If you don't study, you will know how to mess around. Can it be bigger? The women laughed. What are you doing? Guo Luo doesn't take it seriously. Is his family the same as Tang and Wu? Look, 2 years later, they will cry. Mrs. Yang also curled her lips. It's still 2 years? This year is a hurdle. It's time to go to high school, let's see where his stone can pass. Seeing a figure flashing past the door in the alley, Kui Yuman chased Tang Yi into Chi Lei's house. Mrs. Yang immediately came to the spirit. Go and take a look. Kui Yuman's generation was in the most lively era when family planning was implemented. In rural areas, it was possible to have one more child under the policy. In urban areas, the Hyokao was basically one child. Moreover, not only is it a problem of having only one child, but it also advocates late marriage and late childbearing. Therefore, when Chi Lei and the others were born, their parents were basically in their 20s. Especially Tang Chenggang, who served as a soldier at the age of 16, has been working for 20 years, and he has to respond to the family state policy. Under the introduction of Grandpa Chi Lei, he met Kui Yuman, who was a teacher in elementary school, and Tang Yi was born at 31. At that time, Tang Chenggang hadn't changed jobs, because Kui Yuman had ample working hours, and the Chi family and Wu family were dual employees, so the three brothers just learned to run and Kui Yuman took 3 children by himself. Later, when Tang Yi was 7 years old, Kui Yuman had a serious illness. Tang Chenggang felt that he owed his wife, and for some other reasons, he took off his uniform and returned to the place. Kui Yumin took sick leave for 2 years, and Tang Chenggang also achieved some achievements after 2 years of struggle. She quit her job altogether and concentrated on bringing 3 babies at home. Strictly speaking, Kui's mother is more intimate than Qi Lei and Wu Ning's relatives. Just now, Tang Yi broke the car and ran away. Kui Yumin knew that he must have gone to Qi Lei's house, and he chased him with the broom head. Before entering the hospital, I heard the roar of 3 bastards. As soon as Kui Yumin rushed in, he violently knocked on the windowsill to make them stop. As soon as the 3 little boys were pushed down by her, they heard the bang of the door behind them, and an old lady and a middle-aged woman came in, knocking on the seats. The old lady's surname is Yang, and she is next door to Qi Lei's house. Everyone usually calls her Mrs. Yang. Is not the meaning of the wife of the old Yang family. In fact, a considerable number of northeastern people come from Shandong. Although there is no Shandongese, the inverted sentence commonly used by Shandong people is deeply integrated into the northeastern dialect. Old Mrs. Yang, the correct name should be Mrs. Yang. As for the middle-aged woman, Kui Yumin also knew him, from the back alley, from the old Wang family. Both of them have children in the family entrance examination this year. Was still at the gate, and Mrs. Yang yelled, "This is the end of the exam, and you are happy again? Why can't you stop for a while, just study hard?" The woman also asked loudly, "Yumin, how is your Xiao Yi Kao? Where are the 2 boys, Lao Qi and Lao Wu?" Kui Yumin frowned, knowing that this was the wrongdoer. Not Kui Yumin was born out of nothing, it was all for the reason. There is a Yang Jinwei from Yang's family, and a girl from that Wang's family who is in the 3rd year of junior high school. Both of them are in this year's high school entrance examination, and their grades are better than the 3 in the house. Moreover, there is still a bit of contradiction between the children. Yang Jinwei has been fighting with Qi Lei and the 3 since he was young. The little girl from the Wang family plays with Yang Jinwei, not with Qi Lei and the others. To put it bluntly, those 2 kids and a group of these 3 little bastards. Things between children, adults don't get mixed up, at best they know it. But it also points to other people. Some people like the short of the East and the West, and they can even raise the child's affairs to the deep hatred between home and home. These 2 houses are just like this. Said, this is to show off. But there is no other way, who can let people have outstanding capital? It's hard to say anything. I turned my head and looked into the room, meaning that everyone had asked, and I was still an elder, so it would be rude not to answer. Tang Yi curled his lips with his mother, and said reluctantly, "It's okay. Anyway, the key line is not in play, but there is nothing wrong with small bargaining." Wu Ning also said, "I am almost the same as Tang Yi, not as good as your Xiao Yi." Wu Ning said to Yang Nai that Yang Jinwei was really good at learning, so it was a cattle. Wu Ning is just polite, but when she heard this in Yang Nai's ears, it was not beautiful. With his hands behind his back, "My grandson is willing to learn." He looked at the room with his lips, "Unlike these, I just think about opening the house when I see the sky. This old lady is a bit mean, and when it comes to her baby grandson, it's even more borderless. If this is in future generations, it must be fought." But in the 1990s, Kui Yumin, a neighbor who lived for decades, was once a teacher. He didn't want to be familiar with an old lady. At most, he felt uncomfortable. Went down the donkey, yes. Stared at the room, learn from Xiao Yi, don't know how to do it all day long. Was talking, pulling up Yang Nai and the woman, go to my house and sit down." However, the 2 didn't mean to leave. The woman's feet were rooted, and the movement was not small. Yang Jinwei is really sensible. My girl herself said that if no one of our children of the same age accepts, we can't learn Jinwei. Yumin, it's not that my sister said you, but you have to control it. It was when S.A. Huaner didn't study well, your old Tang couldn't make enough money to lose. The old lady of the Yang family didn't want to go, so she banged a drum beside her. Jinwei is sensible, but he is sensible. When he goes home, he doesn't do anything, just read a book. Also said to Kui Yuman, Tang Yi is such a good child, why is it not easy to learn? Suddenly lowered his voice, you have to talk to Liwa, if this continues, not only will his stone be ruined, but Xiao Yi and Xiao Ningzi must also be damaged. Who said no? Aunt Wang was also excited, going back to the bottom of the list, I don't think Guo Liwa thought about the stone. You can have a snack, then no matter how good the relationship between the three of you is, you can't make fun of your child's future, right? Yang Na looked like a thief, you live far away, you can't hear it. It's the stone of his house, how can it be plausible? Guo Liwa can't control it at all, but your sister Wang is right. Is caring, but in fact it is to sow discord. In the old hutongs of this era, there are neighbors just like relatives, and there are also unpleasant wives. Kui Yuman's heart is like a mirror, knowing the nature of these two people. But her gentle personality made her disdain to argue with her, so she pulled the two of them together, walk around, go to my house, buy the watermelon at the morning market, and help me taste the sweetness. The two women with long tongues were almost invited by Kui Yuman to go out. But the old lady Yang was not too addicted. She glanced into the room and said, Stone, why don't you talk? How are you doing the test? This is the old lady knowingly asked, who doesn't know Chi Lei's academic performance. Just rushed to talk uncomfortably. These children have been fighting since they were young, and it was her family Yang Jinwei who suffered in the end. In the past, Chi Lei had to blast them out, but this time Chi Lei just laughed. Half-jokingly said, Grandma Yang, are you not kind? You don't care about me if you ask this, this is an old neighbor who hasn't treated my house for decades. Hey! Old Mrs. Yang shook her head, this boy, can't you ask? Chi Lei still laughed, if you ask, you can definitely ask, but we have one thing to say, you can ask if you close the door. I don't want to study hard, you always give me 2 sticks and have nothing to say, who makes you an elder? Glanced at the middle-aged woman, but there are no outsiders in this? I don't know, I thought Yang Nai you are so old that you don't have the eyes to see. Chi Lei said nothing wrong, and Mrs. Yang did not choke to death. And that Aunt Wang is even more uncomfortable, what the hell? Why am I an outsider? No, Chi Lei hasn't finished yet, besides, how difficult is it to make Aunt Wang? Let's run a child with you, it seems that she is not good. Don't follow it, and it's not enough, isn't it? Wu Ning and Tang Yi, as well as Kui Yuman, couldn't hold back. Why haven't I found out before? You reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Chi Lei's mouth is so poisonous. Kui Yuman suffocated a smile, and took the two of them to the door, go to my house. Tang Yi and Wu Ning laughed crazy as soon as the 3 adults left. Oh go, Shishi, are you hurt? Yang Nai is so old and then she's mad. Did it hurt? Chi Lei raised his eyebrows, I haven't said the worse. This old Mrs. Yang, don't look at her age, but she is not necessarily a good person. Brother San and Yang Jinwei have a bad relationship, mostly because of this old lady. When I was a child, sometimes Kui Yuman was too busy to come, and occasionally entrusted his 3 brothers to Mrs. Yang to help them. Moreover, Kui Yuman is very good at being a human being. Every time he gives the old lady some change, saying that he is buying snacks for the 4 children. To be honest, when I was young, the 3 brothers really didn't mean to reject Yang Jinwei. As a result, the problem came. Every time Kui's mother paid for it, the old lady was either arrogant or eccentric. Buy chicken leg bread for Yang Jinwei, and give 3 brothers a bald head. Bought big bubble gum for Yang Jinwei, but gave 3 brothers a piece of fruit candy. What's even more unbearable is that this old lady still loves to show off, and everywhere is his grandson. Took the 4 children out, Yang Jinwei had to carry her on her back, and the three brothers just stared at the back, that envy and jealousy. Slowly hatred. Brother 3 won't file a complaint yet, I didn't have this habit since I was a child. The principle of the three dads is that the masters have to be like masters, be magnificent, and whoever complains first beats whoever. What is it now? Mom, why do you take my mom's money to eat bubble gum, chicken leg bread? Why are we on our legs and you on our backs? Who is used to your bad smell? Why the old lady Yang caused the trouble to the three brothers, how could she return it behind her back? As a result, Yang Jinwei, who was an honest group when he was being bullied, turned around to Su Tang Chenggang and Chi Jun. Both of these have been in the army. They are really not parents who are used to their children. Because of Yang Jinwei, I was beaten frequently. But the three brothers are all donkeys. The more you fight, the more uncomfortable I will find Yang Jinwei. After a long period of time, you will really end up revenge. Recalling those childhood memories, Chi Lei was very upset. Wait and watch, the good show is yet to come. Tang Yi and Wu Ning were taken aback. What do you mean? Chi Lei smiled, there will be a good show soon. Then told a secret that he would never know in this time and space. The two brothers were surprised when they heard it. Tang Yi opened his mouth wide, just his sharp-mouthed monkey cheek, and Zheng Xiaoyan? Did you make it up? Zheng Xiaoyan is the child of Aunt Wang's family just now. Wu Ning also looks like a dog, grandma's, it's irrational. He still dares to fall in love. No, I will find a chance to hammer my grandson another day. He Wu Xiaojian is still single. Regarding this, Chi Lei just smiled. In the matter of men and women, Yang Jinwei is indeed faster than them by more than one step. He and Zheng Xiaoyan are actually getting better in the third year of junior high, but they are more concealed. Later, the two and Chi Lei were classmates. That's right, a classmate in vocational high school. Because of their premature love, the two basically didn't want to study in the third year of the junior high school, and the results of the high school entrance examination were terrible, and they went to the vocational high school together with Chi Lei. Or, how did Chi Lei say that there will be a show right away? In the sophomore year of high school, Yang Jinwei made Zheng Xiaoyan's belly bigger and there was a lot of trouble. This relationship that had been hidden for 3 years was only known to Chi Lei. Later, in order to escape punishment from the school, Yang Jinwei asked the family to find a relationship while saying that Zheng Xiaoyan took the initiative, and Zheng Xiaoyan seduced him. Mrs. Yang even went to school crying and making trouble, calling Zheng Xiaoyan a vixen, and seduce her Jinwei, but she was not expelled from school. But Zheng Xiaoyan couldn't argue with her words, she didn't have the face to stay in school and dropped out. Although it's not about Chi Lei's business, it's as disgusting as eating a fly. Moreover, this family and Chi Lei's hatred is more than that. 3 years later, when the grain depot was restructured, Yang Jinwei's father, Yang Daqiang, squeezed out Chi Lei's mother Guo Liwa and became the deputy general manager of the Shangbei branch from the deputy chief of the storage department. This also directly led to Guo Liwa's frustration, and had to retire early in less than 50 years. Therefore, Chi Lei must have a bad face when he saw Mrs. Yang. Fuck me with Laozi? Back then, I was trained on the chat, and I haven't lost in grabbing wheat. Damn, it's uncomfortable. Chi Lei is a good run, but Wu Xiaojian is still suffocating. Got such a big secret again, my heart said, I have to be cool too. Stab Tang Yi, what do you think about Yang Jinwei's friend? Tang Xiao I thought about it seriously, with a serious look, my feeling is that he must be uncomfortable so that he cannot be uncomfortable. Wu Xiaojian gave a thumbs up, heroes see the same thing. While talking, the two of them went to the courtyard holding the guitar, basking in the sun and singing sad songs. Chi Lei propped his legs on the desk, in accordance with the tone of the two. After a while, there was a sound of opening the door next door, and the sound of the piano there was also abrupt. Wu Xiaojian listened to the courtyard wall for a while, and confirmed that it was old lady Yang and Aunt Wang who had returned from Tang Yi's house. Tang Yi didn't react, and stared at Wu Ning, not knowing what he was going to do. I heard Wu Xiaojian suddenly say, "Eh? Have you heard that? Xiao Yi is famous in the third middle school." Tang Yi was dumbfounded. He looked at Wu Ning, the courtyard wall, and the room Qilei who was watching the play. He understood in seconds. Opened his voice, "What did you hear? What happened to Xiao Yi and Zheng Yan'er?" Wu Ning, "Oh, go. Do you know that? Is there no small noise?" Tang Yi, "Why don't I know? I heard from the third middle school buddies that they have been not in the carport, and many people have seen it. It is said that the old excitement." Wu Ning, "I don't think this is true. How good Xiao Yi is studying." Tang Yi, "Really? More real than gold." Qilei. Another yard at this time. The old lady Yang with back hands looked at Aunt Wang and then at the courtyard wall. Every wrinkle on her old face was trembling. As for Aunt Wang, her palms are sweating. Her family is a girl, so it's a loss. Besides, if you like Tang Yi, it doesn't help Wu Ning. At least people's home is good. Why are you staring at such a thing as Yang Jinwei? The lips are all purple, Lao Mrs. Yang. Mrs. Yang. Can't you? You know, why are we in the dark? Old Mrs. Yang was also dumbfounded. Xiao Yi and Yan'er are getting better? I didn't see it. You, don't listen to those two bears talking nonsense. While talking, Mrs. Yang stared her eyes. I'm looking for him, this is mouth. As a result, Aunt Wang was in a hurry. What are you looking for? I don't know what people say. I know it, but I don't know. Let me tell you, if your Jinwei dares to touch my Yan'er a finger, my old lady will never end with yours. Old Mrs. Yang, don't worry. Fuck your mother's lap. Can I be in a hurry? Yes, there is a fight. Listening to the noise from the courtyard to the outside, Wu Ning and Tang Yi turned back to the house with their stomachs in their hands. It was a schadenfreude. Wu Xiaojian, it's cool. Tang Xiaoi, is it so fun to complain? Qilei looked at the two dumbfoundedly, taking the bamboo shoots? I have to rush over to fight with you later. As a result, Wu Xiaojian glared, Speak clearly, it doesn't matter to me. You brought up the matter first, and the news was ranted out by a madman, but I didn't say anything. Later Mrs. Yang came over, don't lay on me. He picked one clean. Qilei and Tang Yi were speechless, bitch. Mrs. Yang still didn't find the three of them to settle accounts. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com didn't have that idle time. First dealt with Aunt Wang, and then Yang Jinwei went home after the exam. I'm not dead. I came back with Zheng Yanyan and was hit. In the eyes of old lady Yang and Aunt Wang, they believed it by a third. Although the two did not admit it to death, they were still jumping around. After a while, Qi Qiujun pushed his happiness 250, which was manufactured in more than 8 years, into the courtyard, and Guo Liwa followed behind with a vegetable pocket. After entering the hospital, seeing that the three brothers were there, she didn't say anything. Guo Liwa changed her clothes as usual and went into the kitchen for an unprecedented time. Tang Yi threw the guitar. Godmother, what do you eat tonight? Guo Liwa, eggplant. Oh. Tang Yi and Wu Ning don't like eggplant the least, so they turned around and left, and went to Tang Yi's house to investigate dinner. As soon as the two of them left the house, Qi Qiujun entered the house. Watching Qilei holding the guitar, he also picked up the guitar on the bed. Come on, let's see if you make any progress. Qilei smiled, I almost forget it. Clasped the frequently used chords and played it a few times. Qi Qiujun sat there watching, and followed Qilei's tune. It just didn't play a few times before becoming Qi Qiujun with Qilei. Brother Three's guitars were all learned from Qi Qiujun. In fact, Chi Lei's wall guitars were not bought, but Chi Qiujun made them. The two played for a while, and Chi Qiujun didn't touch the piano for a long time. This time, he was addicted. And Chi Lei is also under the guidance of his father, the more he can play, the better. Finally, after a set of etudes came down, Chi Qiujun put his hand on the strings, meaning, let's go here. Suddenly asked carefully, then what, how did it take the exam?